Hi everyone, hope you're all keeping well. Thanks for joining our webinar today about FlowForma's InfoPath Migration tool and why migrating from InfoPath to FlowForma is a piece of cake. My name is Conor McGrath and I'll be your host for today's session. I'm delighted to be joined today by my FlowForma colleague, David Shanley, who's process consultant here at FlowForma. Welcome, Dave. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Hi everybody.
So with that, I'm going to hand you over to Dave, who's going to talk a bit about why you're here and about FlowForma to begin with, and I'll pop back in again later for the Q&A session. So over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Conor. So, why you need to migrate from InfoPath? So the purpose of the webinar is to talk a little bit initially about InfoPath and why you need to migrate from it. Obviously, as you all know, or you wouldn't be here on this webinar, support for InfoPath is ceasing in 2026. So aside from the fact that support is discontinuing in 2026, the functionality that InfoPath offers, is a little bit outdated. It doesn't have mobile enablement, for example, and these are obviously serious considerations, and it's time to look at an alternative. So why choose the FlowForma Process Automation tool as a replacement for InfoPath? So FlowForma is a process automation tool that sits on SharePoint as part of your Office 365 offering. And it's 100% no code, and it's been designed from the ground up for process owners to build with. And you're building in one single interface as well. And that interface combines forms, workflow, and document generation capabilities. And again, as I said, it's 100% no code. And you can access the forms that are created from these process builds via your browser or from our mobile app or from our teams. Again, the speed at which you can build is critical. It's all about agile building environments and the ability of process owners to empower themselves to build quickly using an intuitive interface with a product that's actually affordable. And again, it's 100% no code, and that's integral to our solution. It's been built from the ground up for process owners to build with. And again, FlowForma is an award-winning process automation provider. It's been recognized by our peers at Forrester Wave, Microsoft Awards, and so on. And again, 200,000 plus users are using FlowForma across 20 countries. This is just a snapshot of some of our customers across the globe, global leaders such as Maverick Construction in Boston in the US, all the way across to Inland Rail in Australia. So Inland Rail, incidentally, is the largest freight rail infrastructure project in Australia. It's 1,700 kilometers of track that is being built. So we have a presence across the globe. Aon, for example, one of the world's largest insurance brokers, challenges they have were around different business units running different processes, and obviously a legacy dependency on Excel, emails, and paper. There was challenges around no audit trails, lack of visibility. With FlowForma, they were able to automate a large number of processes in a very, very small fraction of time. And the ability to standardize those processes across business units was critical and have one true source of truth. And processes that were built range from HR, onboarding, offboarding processes, all the way through to insurance, vetting, and complaints processes. The A14, as you see down at the bottom there, is the biggest road project in Britain. And it's a joint venture between Costain, Skanska, and Balfour Beatty. In construction, typically the adoption of IT is quite poor. There's a lot of manual paper-based processes and a distributed workforce. So you've got people working on site, you've got people working in head office and so on. The challenges they had was around end-to-end process visibility. There was none, and there wasn't one single source of truth. What they also needed as well was mobile capabilities together with offline capabilities, and FlowForma was able to fit the bill for that. And they've built out, I think, in excess of 70 processes over an 18-month period, one of which, the targeted risk monitoring process, has already saved them £77,000. So a significant saving just for one single process. LSTM there, you'll see on the right-hand side, is the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. They have made their entire finance department paperless using FlowForma. So again, there's just a quick snapshot of some of our customers and how they're using FlowForma. So what are the benefits of migrating to FlowForma Process Automation? Again, it's 100% no code. So this tool has been designed from the ground up for process owners to build with. It's not a case of it being a solution that's been shoehorned that was originally designed for developers. It's being designed for process owners. You're working off one single build interface as well. It's combining your forms, your workflow, and your document generation capabilities in one interface. It's got mobile app capabilities as well for iOS and Android. When you are designing a process out, you don't have to repurpose it for mobile app. It's automatically done for you. And the speed at which you can build is key. So you can continue to prototype until you get the process right. Any changes and refinements to that process can be made very, very quickly. So it takes away that traditional reliance that businesses have on IT. So a lot of the time, if you have IT that needs to deliver a solution for you, you might get it back in 3 months, 6 months down the line, at which point there's a disconnect. It doesn't bear any resemblance to the current iteration of the product and the process. And end user adoption can be a challenge then. So it's a better end user experience all around. So meet our InfoPath migration tool. So I'm just going to take ownership of the screen here. Connor, can you see my screen there?
Yep, all good, Dave.
Okay, so this is our InfoPath migration conversion tool here. Now what I have is I have some InfoPath templates here that we're going to convert across to FlowForma templates. So one of the considerations I guess you have to make when you are looking to migrate processes across from InfoPath is how many processes do you need to take across? In some cases, some of these processes may be redundant, you may not need them. In other cases, the process may need a little bit of refinement and change. And in some cases, it can go across as is. Maybe it hasn't changed a lot over time. So we're going to look at some of these scenarios here. So I'm going to select an InfoPath template here. I'm going to pick this one here called EAA report, which is an employee annual appraisal. And you'll see in the left-hand pane here, the InfoPath form template. And then in the right-hand side, the FlowForma flow template, which will be an XML file, which will import into our environment, our FlowForma environment. If I expand out the InfoPath template here, you'll see all the various different sections here within that template. So let's just say I want to expand out this section here, section 2. And I want to add that as a step in my new FlowForma template. So a step, just before we do that, a step in FlowForma is the same as a block of content you can attribute to a person or to a group of people. So if I were to add this as a step, that's my block of content taken through from section 2. And you'll see as content is brought across for person or group, for example, for date and time, that's taken across as is. It remains the same data type. It won't take any data that's underpinning a dropdown across, nor will it take any coding that's been used for business logic within InfoPath. So when you do take this across, you will need to kind of apply your business logic. But the beauty of FlowForma is that you can do so very, very quickly because it's 100% no code, as distinct from the business logic applied in an InfoPath form template, which has to be done by developers essentially. So I've taken across my first section here. Let's just say I want to take across from my second section here, just this question. I want to add it to my section 2 step. I can bring it across very easily. I can take nodes here or questions in my FlowForma template and delete them. And I continue to add as and when I need to. So I can expand out, for example, year-end summary. Let's just expand that out. And maybe I want to take this section across as another step. I can expand it out and see all of my questions here. So what's happening here is it's going to save me an awful lot of heavy lifting when I need to build out my process in FlowForma. I already have my text fields in place here, so I don't have to key them in. I don't have to add those questions in. All I need to do is apply my business logic to my process build in FlowForma. Again, let's go through another section here and take a look at it. Okay, I'm going to go through to my objectives. There's a repeating table here. So I can add this table in as is using the following structure into my FlowForma form. And again, you can see it maintains the structure that it has in the InfoPath template. And I can continue adding here and layering up my new FlowForma flow here. And then I can bring that in. Now that's an example of a InfoPath template that you can repurpose and restructure whilst you're actually working here in the InfoPath template interface here. Now, let me just reset this and take through another process. I'm going to take through one that is easily identifiable here, an annual appraisal. And if I expand it out, you'll see here the various different sections in my InfoPath template. So again, as I mentioned, the first example there is one where we can repurpose and restructure the framework of the InfoPath template and bring it across. Or in this instance here, we can just add everything. So maybe this process isn't fundamentally changing, and I'll take it across in its entirety here. So once I take it across in its entirety here, and I save the flow, I could save that onto my desktop as an XML file, which is basically a flow definition, a FlowForma flow definition. Once that's been saved onto my desktop, I'm going to go into one of my environments here, and I'm going to import it in. So I'm just clicking import flow here, and I'm going to locate that flow on my desktop. So it's now pulling through all the steps and all the questions. I'm going to click import. So once I've imported it, I'm going to open it up in Flow Designer. And Flow Designer, as I mentioned previously, is your 3-in-1 toolkit that combines your forms, your workflow, and your document generation capabilities in one single interface. And this is Flow Designer here. And if you see here in the left-hand side, I can expand out each of these sections here, which have now become steps in FlowForma. And again, when you've got a lot of processes you're bringing through here as well, it saves a significant amount of time if you can take the field titles or question titles across. All you have to do then is go in and maybe change some of the question types. So for example here, if I select position and I go in and edit that, again, in our InfoPath template, there was date underneath that. It was a drop down. So it takes that through as a single line of text in this instance, but I can very quickly and easily change that to, let's just say, a choice in this instance. And I can put in my various different choices here very quickly and easily. Now, the beauty of FlowForma is that you're working off one single interface, and I can apply business logic very quickly and easily to this process build. So we have here a 4-step process. Let's just say we want to add a step to this process. We want to add a training step. On the initial step, we're going to ask, is training required? If the answer to that is yes, we're going to have a second step called training. So I'm going to add that step to my process build here. And we're going to call it training. So once I've added my step, I can position it very quickly as a second step. And to that step, we're going to add 2 questions. So I've selected my step. I'm going across to add questions. My first one is going to be training completed. And we have all our question types here. They align with the native SharePoint data types, and we have our own custom question types too. So there's a lot of depth to the software here. What we're looking for here is a very, very simple yes, no. And then the second question I'm going to have here is, if training is not completed, reason not completed. I want to capture why. So I'm going to have another question here. Reason not completed. And I'm going to set that as in multiple lines of text. So we're going to have one question added to my first step here. Is training required? And we'll make that a yes, no. So I'm going to hide this step, training. And the trigger point that determines whether or not it's required is here. If training required equals yes, I want to show an engaged training step. And again, we're going to do this using simple business logic. It's not low code, it doesn't require any developer interaction with it. It can be built by the process owner. So I'm going to my trigger point. If training required equals yes, I'm going to add a hide show step rule here. So you see the rules are grouped according to their category. So we've got workflow control rules. I've all these data integration rules, communication rules, SharePoint actions, and so on. So there's a lot of depth to the software. What we're going to use here is a workflow control rule. We're going to use a hide show step rule here. And I know if training required equals yes, I want to engage the training step. So I'm going in to edit my conditions. And again, it's simple logic. I'm just drilling down into my first step. And if training required equals in this instance, if it equals yes, I'm just keying it in. If the answer is yes, what do I want to do? I want to show the second step called training. And that is my first rule in place. And again, it's very easy for me to go in here and take a look and see where my rules sit. It's all about context. So if I select operating location, there's no defined rules here. If I select training required, I can see the rule here. I can see a summary of the rule. I can go in and edit the rule from here. So I can see straight away where my rules sit and why they sit where they sit. On the training step, if training completed equals no, I want to capture why it wasn't completed. So I'm going to hide this question. Trigger point to determine whether it's required is here. If training point completed equals no, show reason not completed. Go to my add rules. Again, it's another workflow control rule. And these are the rules you're going to use 70% of the time, irregardless of your process build. Edit conditions. And this time we're going to drill down into our second step. If training completed equals no, if that condition is met, I want to show, again, drilling down into my second step, I want to show reason not completed. Let's just take a look and see how our form is now. So I'm going to create a new form, annual appraisal. And this is what the end user will see. So the header portion of the form here can be customized. You can take in a company logo. You could also take data captured in the form and pull it up into the header portion. In the step bar, the gray step bar here, you see the currently engaging steps in white. I can also see there's 3 subsequent steps here in sequence. I could also have steps in parallel as well, should they be needed. I see all my various different questions here. Here's the one we edited. We made it a choice, job 1, job 2, job 3. And we have a question change rule here. So if training required equals yes, we're going to show the training step, which is now appearing up in the top here. If I change my mind and say no, that step is gone. Let's just say we need training. When I click submit, we can have rules firing here. For example, we could be sending an email notification to the owner of training. We could be assigning it to a specific individual or group and so on. When I click submit, those rules will fire. And it'll take me straight through to the second step here. And again, we have a question change rule here. If training completed equals no, we're going to be asked why. And that's how quickly you can build with FlowForma. So being able to take all the heavy lifting out by being able to easily migrate the framework and structure of your processes across from InfoPath to FlowForma, and then the speed at which you can implement your business logic, your workflow logic, means you can turn around your processes, repurpose your old InfoPath processes very, very quickly using FlowForma. And it can be done by the business, the people that know the process best. So I think, Connor, we have a case study we're going to take a look at. So this is a customer journey here for the NHS Blackpool, and it's a very, very good example of an organization that had a large number of InfoPath forms that needed to be migrated, and they found the FlowForma migration tool very useful to do so. It takes all the heavy lifting out of it if you can structure your process, bring it across the FlowForma, and you don't have to go and start keying in all your fields again, which can be quite time consuming, particularly for long running processes. So the ability to migrate like that, and then the speed at which you can apply your business logic and your workflow logic, means that your processes can be turned around and repurposed very, very quickly.
Okay, thanks very much, Dave, for the demonstration and for
You're welcome.
The mini case studies at the end there as well. So we've come in a little bit early, so we've got plenty of time for questions, and we have got a few in through the chat box so far. So I might just start here, Dave. There's one asking, FlowForma forms looks quite different to InfoPath. Is it easy to print them?
So FlowForma has generate document capabilities, which means that once you install a FlowForma Word plugin on your desktop version of Word, you can harness that functionality. So you generate a document. That document can be populated with content from the form. That can then create a Microsoft Word document. And that document in turn can be converted to PDF should you wish. So the document you do create as well doesn't have to resemble the format and structure of the form. You can follow any kind of a template structure you wish using the document generation capabilities. All you're doing is pulling in tokens or attributes from your process build into the document template, and they will be populated with the appropriate content when the generate document rule fires.
Great, yeah. I hope that that was useful. So there's another question here asking, how does email work in FlowForma? Is it as easy as InfoPath? I'm sure you'll have some strong opinions on
Yeah,
this.
I'd say it's easier. So you can create emails that can be populated with content from your process, information from the form itself. You can attach documents to that email, and you can also apply a condition that determines when an email is sent. And you can also schedule those emails to be sent at predefined times. So it could be sent now, or it could be sent at a date in the future. And you can determine what that date is in your process build. So it might be today plus 3 days, today plus 6 days. So that gives you the ability to use these email rules to ensure that processes are adhering to predefined SLAs, times to completion, and you're able to escalate as and when you need to.
Very good, thank you. There's another question here. Steve is asking, can you export data from FlowForma to a database like Azure? And I presume that's SQL Server, I imagine that probably is, Dave?
Yeah, so you can. So we've got built-in rules that allow you to export your data through the SQL Server very, very quickly and easily. And you can compile all your data there. And it's very easy then to report on that once you have it in your SQL database.
Great. Another question here. Can you send a FlowForma form by email like InfoPath? I think that might be something similar to above, but maybe there's slight differentiators there.
So all you need, so all the data in FlowForma is stored centrally. So we use SharePoint essentially as a content database. We sit on SharePoint. So all you need really is a link to access the form via the browser. So once you have that link, you can access the form via your desktop browser, or alternatively, you can use our mobile app, which is available for iOS and Android, and access your processes that way, which you can do online and offline, and also as well our Teams app, so you can access and interface with your processes via Teams as well, should you wish. So there's lots of different ways you can interface and engage with forms.
There's a few more questions coming in here at the moment. So there's another one here. How can IT manage my processes?
So when you want to try out FlowForma, I'd recommend initially, obviously, IT would need to maybe set up a site collection and install the app in there for you, provision an environment for you to kind of work and try out the tool. Ultimately, that we have, for example, a governance hub which allows IT to have visibility of all the various different environments that FlowForma would live in. So IT can provision sandbox environment, for example, a UAT environment, and a production environment, and can decide who has access to what and what processes get promoted from one environment through to another. So the beauty of FlowForma is that it's not just about the speed at which you can build, it's also how you actually manage that process as well. So when does it move from sandbox to UAT? When does it move from UAT to production? So IT need to have that visibility, need to have that control, and the governance hub gives them that.
Okay, there's a lot of questions coming in here now at the moment, which is great, and keep them coming. So there's a question here, is the data for a form stored in a traditional SharePoint library, and can I look at the saved data from a native SharePoint?
All forms is the name of the list that the data from forms is stored in. So we use SharePoint essentially as a content database or data repository. You can access as well data from native SharePoint lists as well. We sit on SharePoint, so we're tightly integrated with it, so we can pull data through from native SharePoint lists, write data back to native SharePoint data lists.
Okay, thank you. There's another question here. I think you referred to it earlier. Maybe you might want to be able to expand a bit more on it, asking, do we have a mobile app? And I know we do. So maybe you might be able to elaborate a little bit more on that for us, Dave, and sort of explain a bit more about how that works.
Yes, we do. So we have a mobile app for both iOS and Android. And the beauty of that is that you don't have to have a specific form design for mobile. It's automatically rendered for you. So you just build in your desktop and then the form is automatically rendered for you for mobile. The mobile app is used a lot in the likes of construction because it also has offline capabilities. So should you not have connectivity, you can still engage with a process, and any data you input into that process or form will be cached to your device. And once you have connectivity, that will get uploaded onto SharePoint for you.
Yeah, we've got some great case studies with some use cases of our mobile app as well on our website, especially in construction, as you mentioned there, Dave. It's really, really useful. And there's a few more questions coming in here as well. One person is asking, are there any prerequisites for FlowForma? I'd imagine that's probably technology-wise what people need to have in order to run our tool.
SharePoint Online. So it sits on SharePoint Online as part of your Office 365 offering. So that is a must-have.
Cool. Okay, there's still questions coming in here now, and it's asking here, can FlowForma be integrated to our systems we already have for pushing or pulling data?
Yes, it depends on the systems. That'll depend on how the integration happens. So if that system's in the cloud and it's got a connector in Azure, we can use our Logics app connector to integrate with it, or we can use web services once REST API is available and integrate that way. So lots of different ways to do it. Just depends on the scenario.
Great. There's another question just coming about onboarding and how does that work?
So onboarding in terms of building out your initial processes, we have a Sure Start program, which ensures that your initial process or processes are built in conjunction with our customer success team. The beauty of that is that it allows you to get hands-on experience on how to build with FlowForma, and allows you then to take that knowledge and continue to build yourself going forward with our support, obviously, as well.
Great, great. And I think I'm just going to wait now in case we get any more last minute questions come in. There is a question here that's come in, Dave. It's asking, can you populate a drop-down with data from an external source?
Yeah, you can, in short.
Great.
So built in, we've got SQL lookup, for example, built into the tool. So you'll be able to look up SQL Server data and pull the information through from there straight away. Dynamic CRM integration is also in place, as is HubSpot. So they're already there out of the box.
Excellent. There's another question just coming in around reporting and how that works. And I know we have reporting tools available, but you probably want to be able to elaborate a bit more on that too.
Yeah, so it depends on the type of reporting you want. So we have process performance, which is part of the core tool, which allows you to see how processes are performing relative to predefined SLAs or times to completion. So you can see visually how everything is performing. Then depending on the type of reporting you want, if this is reporting, say, for management around data captured in forms, you might want to look at pushing the data through the SQL Server, for example, pulling it back into Power BI dashboards and so on. So there's lots of different ways you can report.
Excellent. I'm just waiting. I think we have any more questions coming in. Do have a good bit of time left over, but if not, we can move on and we can give back some time to people because I know schedules are very busy, so that's no bad thing either. But it doesn't look like we're going to get many more in at this point, so we might wrap up the Q&A session actually for the moment. And if there is any other questions anyway that you might have after the webinar, and of course the recording will be made available to everyone that's on here today, David or any of our other process specialists will be more than helpful, I'm sure, in steering you in the right direction. So if there is any other questions you think of after, because that can happen, then might not necessarily come in at the time, but absolutely get in touch, and David or one of our specialists can reach out as well. So before we do wrap up, then I suppose I should quickly mention that if you're looking to book a one-to-one call with one of our migration experts, or indeed sign up for a free personalized demo or a free 14-day trial, you can do so on our website at www.flowforma.com, and our experts there will be happy to steer you in your migration project, as I mentioned. So be sure to reach out with any questions that you may have, whether little or big. So our team there will be more than capable of helping you on those. And just finally then, when the webinar ends here this afternoon, you'll be invited to fill in a very quick survey, as I mentioned from the outset. We'd be very appreciative if you could spend about 1 minute to fill that out for us. And by doing so, as I mentioned, you could be in with a chance of winning some cake. So it's for your efforts. So it's a nice touch. So thank you for your time today, folks. Have a great day. And thank you, Dave, for your time and for the
You're welcome.
questions you've
Thank you,
got in
everybody.
today. Thank you very much. That's all then for today, folks. I hope you have a nice day and indeed have a nice week. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you, everybody.